Last year, we said goodbye to a long-standing gaming magazine. Well, I'm here to inform you that it may be coming back. It's Sunday, so let's get sensational. I'm Mike, and I'm back to talk about the gaming news. But before we hop into this week's news, I want to issue a correction for one of the stories I talked about last week. So when I covered the story about Microsoft requiring an account on Forza Horizon 5 for PS5, I said it was the first game to require it, which was incorrect. Grounded and Sea of Thieves on PS5 also require a Microsoft account, which makes sense since they're both online games. So with that additional context, I assume the reason that Forza Horizon 5 requires an account is because it's technically always online, since you can see other people's drive avatars in the open world while you're driving around. One of the commenters on the short I posted last week pointed that out, so I apologize for getting that wrong. It's completely on me. I misunderstood the story. I did pull the short and the TikTok because I didn't want the misinformation to spread that I accidentally put in the video, since it was getting a lot of views. And in the long form video from last week, I cut out parts that were incorrect because I still stand behind the rest of what I said related to that story. I think that they should be more transparent about why they're requiring a Microsoft account for these games. And I think they should do cross saves. And if they can't do cross saves, then they should at least give a reason as to why they're not doing it on the PS5 version of the games. Alright, with all that being said, let's talk about the news stories from this week. And one of the places I used to look for stories was Game Informer, but unfortunately GameStop decided to shut it down last August. I covered the shutdown at the time, and it wasn't really handled that well by GameStop. They put up a goodbye message on the website that wasn't even written by anyone on the staff, and basically the staff didn't get a chance to really say goodbye to the fans on the platform that they helped build and maintain. Well, it looks like they may be reversing course on that decision, as Game Informer's social media pages have been updated, and they now have a teaser that ends with the date of March 25th, 2025. Along with the teaser, they put up the former editor-in-chief Matt Miller and the former content director Brian Shea also posted teasers on their social media, so it looks like Game Informer may be coming back in some form, with some of the original team coming back as well. We should find out for sure in the next couple of days, but if it does come back, I'm happy if some of the staff gets to get their job back and just have the legacy of the magazine in general back. When they shut everything down last year, they didn't make any of the archives of the old magazines or articles available, so it would be great to have access to that stuff again. I still think that GameStop as a company sucks, and they have for a long time, but I'm not going to hate on them reviving the magazine, especially if it means people getting their job back. But Game Informer isn't the only gaming-related property whose future is in question. Pokémon Go's is as well. So last week we covered the official announcement that Niantic is selling its game division to Scopely, which of course includes Pokémon Go. Now, I briefly touched on some of the backlash they were experiencing from the Pokémon Go community because they're worried about aggressive monetization policies being added to the game. Well, the senior product director of Pokémon Go, Michael Staranka, did an interview with the YouTube channel Trainer Tips to address some of the concerns people have about Pokemon Go being sold to Scopely. So he's claiming that the game will never have things like pop-up ads and that the new owners shouldn't mess with their current monetization scheme because it works really well. He also goes on to talk about what data is going to be shared with the new owner, and he said that any location data is still going to be shared with Niantic Spatial, the new company that they formed to focus on real-world 3D maps. Now, one of the other concerns that people had that I hadn't previously addressed was around data privacy, because Scopely is based in Saudi Arabia, and some of the players were concerned about their data possibly going to the Saudi government. But to summarize what the senior game director said, they basically won't be changing much under the new ownership as far as the way the game functions behind the scenes when it comes to monetization and customer data, and he's hoping that the team will have more time to focus on the game's design. Now, of course, all this stuff could end up changing anyway under the new ownership, but because this is a licensed game, especially with a huge IP like Pokemon, the new owners won't be able to make too many changes to the game since they don't own the IP. So from the sound of it, not much is going to change with Pokemon Go, but again, things could always change after the sale goes through, so we'll see how this whole thing shakes out. But things haven't shaken out well for another game based on a huge IP. So a free-to-play 4v4 shooter called Star Wars Hunters was released last year by Zynga. Now, personally, I hadn't really heard much about it, and I haven't played it, so I can't speak on the quality of the game, but they just announced their 5th season, so I would assume that it was doing okay, especially with the Star Wars name attached to it. But apparently I was wrong, because Zynga has announced that Star Wars Hunters will be shutting down as of October 1st. Now, prior to the full shutdown, the final update for the game will be on April 15th, which is also when they're turning off any monetization. Now, as far as refunds, that's a pretty easy topic to cover, because they ain't doing any refunds. They said that the 30-day notice they gave is intended for people to spend whatever currency they have before they turn off monetization on the 15th. So yeah, I think the whole no refunds thing sucks. It's kind of like, oh, make sure you spend all the currency you bought before the time runs out, or you're just gonna lose all the money you put into this game. But yeah, I think Zynga could have handled the whole refund thing better by doing anything else except for what they did. Anyway, outside of the shutdown, I really hope this doesn't lead to anything bad for the team behind the game, like layoffs or a studio shutdown. All right, with the game shutdown news out of the way, we're going to talk about something new being added, like a new store potentially being added to the Xbox. In fact, let's just go ahead and talk about it today. And our final story. So the Xbox is back in the news again this week because they accidentally, well, I'm saying accidentally, but possibly on purpose, leaked a screenshot of their upcoming UI for the Xbox. The reason this is making the news rounds is because the screenshot shows a screen with the playable games on the console, but there's also an option for Game Pass, which, you know, is normal, and Steam. And of course, Microsoft hasn't mentioned anything about bringing Steam games to the Xbox, so yeah, this made the news before Microsoft pulled the screenshot down. The other rumor that's coming out of this whole thing is that they may also be working on an update for the Xbox app that'll show games from your Steam and Epic Games library. And then on top of that, this is all coming right after the rumor about them partnering with a gaming OEM to release a handheld this year. Now, I was thinking that they would just use Windows for the handheld, possibly a more handheld-friendly version, but with this rumor and the screenshot of them showing the Steam tab, I'm wondering if this will tie into the new handheld. Like, maybe the interface is just going to be the same as the Xbox console, but you can also just install Steam and Epic Games, and they'll just have separate tabs for them. Now, as far as Steam on the Xbox Series consoles, I'm not sure how that will work. I assume that it would just be games that Microsoft has on Steam, and maybe you can download them and play them on Xbox. But either way, I think that the prospect of Xbox being a more open platform is a pretty cool idea. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Would you like to see Steam games pop up on the Xbox Series consoles? And what kind of integration do you think Microsoft is planning to do with Steam? Again, let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to tell a friend, tell a coworker, like, share, and subscribe, and hit that bell notification button thing to be notified when I drop a video or a live stream. And always do at least 2 things at the same time.